Today, we're diving into a story of survival, a tale that pushes one man to the absolute edge of what a human can endure. We're heading into the brutal Brand Desert to follow Sheriff James Roberts on a journey that nearly cost him everything.
A song just surfaced in his mind, cutting through the sandy fever. He was sunburned, windburned, hungry, exhausted, but honestly, none of that mattered. The real problem, the one that screamed louder than anything else, was thirst.
So how did he get here? Well, this whole mess started about a week ago, which felt like a lifetime, with a bank robbery in the town of Haville that went completely sideways. Turns out, Roberts and a few U.S. Rangers were waiting for them. Most of the bandits were nabbed on the spot, but Len and his brothers, they scrambled out a second-story window and made a break for the desert, and the sheriff was right on their tail.
After a full day of hard riding, the chase came to a head. It was all a blur of gunfire and panic, and in all that chaos, the horses spooked. All of them. They just took off, leaving everyone, sheriff and bandits alike, stranded on foot in the middle of nowhere.
Roberts took a moment, cleaned and bandaged his torn leg, and then he just picked up their trail. Alone, injured, and on foot. But the chase wasn't over. He didn't know it yet, of course, but the Bradford brothers were about to become the least of his problems. The desert itself was now the enemy.
And just like that, what started as a manhunt quickly spiraled into a desperate, agonizing struggle for plain survival. 3 days. It had been 3 long, dry, agonizing days since he'd had a single drop of water. And even that was just the last few warm dregs from the bottom of his canteen.
You know, this wasn't just being thirsty. This was thirst. The kind that takes over your entire being. A deep, primal ache that crowds out every single other thought in your head.
He knew help wasn't coming. The wind was relentless, wiping the sand clean, erasing any trail he might have left behind. It was just him against 5,000 square miles of unforgiving desert.
As the dehydration really took hold, his mind started to, well, fray at the edges. But in that haze of delirium, something else started to bubble up. A memory, a song.
And then he saw it. An oasis. The air in the distance was wavering, and through that shimmer, he could swear he saw it. Green grass, a tree, and water.
A jolt of hope shot through him. He completely forgot about the chase, forgot about everything except that impossible promise of cool, clear water. He started stumbling toward it, wasting precious air to pant out the one word on his mind: water.
But then, a different voice cut through the haze. It was his wife, Annie, singing a line from an old song she loved. And those words, they just stopped him dead in his tracks.
His training suddenly kicked back in. He knew what it was, an illusion. Hot air bending light, playing tricks on his desperate mind. That song, that one line floating up from his memory, had just saved him from chasing a ghost to his own death.
But as he turned away from the false promise of the mirage, the sheriff found himself staring down a new and very, very real danger.
It started as a low rumble he couldn't quite place, and then he saw it. A massive cougar, just emerging from the landscape. It was prowling toward him, its golden eyes locked on him like a target.
He knew what you're supposed to do in this situation. Get big, make noise. But his throat was so raw he could barely manage a dry croak. He could see the cat was in bad shape too, all ribs and bones. It was weak, which meant it was desperate. Just like him.
And then there was Annie's song again. This time, the lyric felt like a cool sip of water for his soul, a reminder of why he was still fighting. He wasn't done yet. He had to get home.
The cat charged. Roberts drew his revolver. His hands were shaking, his aim was way off. The bullet just kicked up sand. But the sound, the thunderous crack of the gunshot was enough. The startled cougar tumbled, scrambled to its feet, and just ran for its life.
So he'd survived the chase, the thirst, and the cougar. Now he just had to solve the desert's final riddle: how to find water in a place that seemed to only offer poison.
He knew most cacti were toxic, full of bitter alkaloids, but he was nearly delirious. He staggered to the nearest one and hacked it open with his knife. The liquid that oozed out was wretched. He couldn't even force himself to swallow the one poisonous sip he took.
The
The song came back again, but this time it wasn't a memory. It was a guide. Fishhook times. He looked around, and then he saw it, a cactus with spines bent inward, just like tiny fishhooks. He cut it open, and inside was warm, clean water. It was, without a doubt, the single best thing he had ever tasted in his life.
With his canteen full and his strength returning, he wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was the sheriff again. He followed the smoke from a small fire and found them. The Bradford brothers were lying on the ground, moaning in pain, sick from drinking from the exact poisonous cactus he had managed to avoid.
He just walked into their camp, kicked their guns away, and took a long, loud drink from his canteen. And so, after a week of absolute hell, the whole ordeal ended. Not with a big shootout, but with the sight of 3 of the toughest outlaws in the West practically fighting over who could get arrested first. Sheriff Roberts, against all odds, was finally going home.